The impact he might have over the FDA and potentially slowing or blocking certain approvals, whether on the vaccine or the drug side, that was certainly a primary concern when his nomination was first being discussed. I think, though, it was notable during the hearing that he was asked very directly about that. He was asked during the finance hearing by Senator Tillis if he intended to insert himself into scientific discussions with the FDA. And Kennedy said no. He said, I want to empower scientists and make sure that science is unobstructed by vested economic interest. Kennedy took that opportunity to, focus on the fact that he wants to eliminate conflicts of interest, eliminate what he perceives as corruption within the agencies, things like that. But that, he took a point to really say that he's not interested in interfering with scientific discussions. So if we take him at his word, we would not imagine that, he'd be interfering or inserting himself with FDA approval decisions, in any kind of aggressive way that would be, kind of unusual for an HHS secretary. Um, the influence he may have over, the formation of ACIP and the decisions that are made by that group that have impacts on coverage and out-of-pocket costs for patients. I think that remains to be seen. Um, we saw several sides of him when it came to vaccines throughout the hearings. Again, this repeated focus of saying, I'm not anti-vaccine. I do support certain vaccines. Various senators did specify, do you support the polio vaccine? Yes or no? Do you support the measles vaccine? Yes or no? And they had him on the record saying, yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So we have that on the one hand, but then I don't know if we really got any real assurances that um, he's not interested in, influencing the formation of ACIP. I don't think we really have a good answer there yet. That his interests really are elsewhere. He is so focused on issues related to the causes of chronic disease and this overlap of, what role does food play, ultra processed foods and pesticides in our food. Um, he's so focused on those types of issues, as well as, his thoughts on vaccines and the safety of vaccines and the roles that drug play with chronic disease. When it comes to coverage and payment issues, I would think past HHS nominees had more just of an interest generally. He repeated in the finance hearing as well as in the health confirmation hearing, he repeated this phrase that, when we start getting into the weeds of who pays what up and down the supply chain and across various stakeholders, he said, sometimes I feel like we're just talking about moving deck chairs on the Titanic. He repeated that phrase a couple times throughout both hearings. And that just really gives you a sense of where his head's at, that he really, I think my view of it is, I think he kind of views some of these payment issues as more of a secondary, issue. He really does want to put his focus and priority on that research around chronic disease and all those other things on that side of the department. So to me, that was one of my biggest takeaways. How might this actually play out, though? When he's confirmed, if he's confirmed, I think he would rely heavily on the folks that are in those roles. You've got a head of CMS, and you will have a head of CMS in place, and folks that are overseeing Medicare specifically, Medicaid specifically. He could simply be more hands off and deferential to the folks in those roles. So I think those clearly aren't his key areas of focus, at least not right now. And I would imagine, if confirmed, he'd rely heavily on the folks that are in those key positions. They're moving forward with the program because they have to move forward with the program. They have to implement the law. Whether or not there will be changes in the way CMS implements the negotiation program going forward could be a matter of political differences, to be sure. We would definitely expect some changes, in a change of administration like this. But even if we had had a second, not necessarily a Biden term, but a Harris term coming in, a second Democrat term, there would still be changes regardless. I mean, this program's really just getting started, and we don't have that much to point to in the form of regulations and rules on this. We have guidance. We have the guidance for initial price applicability year 2026, and then you have IPay 2027. I mean, and that's it. That guidance is still fresh. There are all sorts of lingering questions of how the process went down for those first rounds of drugs. There's just a lot of things that we don't know how they played out. There has not been a lot of transparency thus far. The law does not require a lot of transparency from CMS in terms of how the process has been implemented. So if there's anything notable out of that CMS press release on the IRA that just came out, to me, the word that jumped out was transparency. The press release made a point to say, we're moving forward with the program, and it was soliciting feedback from stakeholders on how can we be more transparent? What are you looking for? I thought that was notable, and that could be a key area where we see a shift in thinking of how to move forward with this program. Wasn't all that much transparency going forward with the Biden administration thus far. Again, the law doesn't require them to do all that much from that standpoint, but we didn't have all that much insight so far. Maybe we will have a Trump-led IRA implementation where, there is a bit more openness there. That could be a shift. But yeah, the process is we're only in our second year here. Things are going to look different, no matter what. Things are changing.